category we're going to look at is the short story for 2020. And we've got one prize winner and two shortlistees. So our first place prize winner, Michael Callaghan.
Hi, like Ingrid says, I should have been here in 2018 and wasn't able to go, so I'm very delighted to finally be able to make it. As it turns out, I wouldn't have been able to make it last year for similar personal circumstances, so COVID for me brought a certain silver lining in that I am able to come along this year. I've heard great things about Swanwick and it certainly hasn't disappointed so far, and I'm certainly looking forward to the rest of the week. I write mainly short stories. I've got ambitions one day to write a novel, and it has been great being able to speak to some proper published novelists, hoping they'll inspire me to one day do the same. My story is called Lizards. As a prelude to this, there's a statistic I read online about an American survey which says that 12% of people believe that we're ruled by giant alien shape-shifting lizards. So who knows? But anyway, that's what I've read. Anyway, lizards. I normally leave the surgery at 5:30, but my last appointment, Mr. George Ellis, hadn't turned up, and I had used the opportunity to catch up on paperwork. Everyone else had left, and it was approaching 6 when I found myself locking up, and George Ellis arrived. If dictionaries use pictures instead of written descriptions, the word nondescript could use a picture of George Ellis. He was a small man with brown cord trousers, faded grey jacket and round black glasses. He looked at me with shy, embarrassed eyes. "I'm sorry I'm late, Dr. Gilmer. I haven't been sleeping and fell asleep this afternoon and woke up late. Could I possibly see you?" I sighed, but I thought I could spare 10 minutes. So I took him into my office. We sat down and I brought out my notepad. "What appears to be the problem, Mr. Ellis?" He hesitated. I took this to mean some sort of personal problem and let him take his time. "Well, you see," he said, "I was in a car accident a few weeks ago. Nothing serious, not enough to trouble a doctor like yourself. I was crossing the road and wham! It whacked me right across, thumped my head in the curb. Next thing, I was being helped up. The driver was most distressed. I apologised for the upset I had caused." I nodded. George Ellis seemed exactly the sort of man who would apologise to someone who'd just run him over. "I thought I was fine," he continued. "But I went home and went to bed, and the next day things seemed okay until..." He hesitated again. I found myself leaning forward, intrigued despite myself. "I was walking to the train station as usual, and people were walking past me. 3 people. 2 of them were perfectly normal, but the other, yes, was a lizard." There was a very long pause. "I'm sorry," I said. I thought you said lizard." His face turned very red. I know how it sounds. He was a human shape with arms and legs and wearing a smart suit, but his head was green and scaly, and his eyes were red and narrow, and when he opened his mouth, this red tongue flicked out. He shuddered and continued. I kept on walking, told myself that perhaps it was some sort of very convincing fancy dress, but it was so real. I arrived at the station and it was full of perfectly normal people, no lizards. The train arrived and I got on and sat down. Then the ticket collector arrived and asked for my ticket. I looked up and he was another lizard. He nodded, yes, with the same green scaly face, same horrid little slitty red eyes staring at me, and he reached towards me. Yes, and took my ticket, said thank you sir, and handed it back. He spoke, yes, in a normal human voice. He sighed. And since then, I see lizards everywhere. Lots of them, dressed in human clothes, but with lizard heads, on the street, in the supermarkets. I saw one on TV reading the news yesterday. I know this sounds mad. That's why I delayed coming in. And I looked it up in the internet. I stopped writing. Indeed. Yes, I wanted to see if my strange visions could be explained medically, and I could help myself without disturbing a busy professional like yourself. I actually Googled seeing lizards after head injury. I wasn't expecting anything, but to my surprise, other people had experienced exactly the same thing. I found, after a great deal of digging, whole forums dedicated to the phenomenon. And do you know what one theory was? No, that it wasn't a hallucination. The lizards were real. They were aliens preparing for an invasion and had been for decades. They had infiltrated at all levels of society, from shop and factory workers to the professions and to the top reaches of government, and they had subjected human beings to a mass hypnosis to stop us seeing them. But people who had received head trauma could break out of the hypnotic effect, see them for what they truly were. There was another long silence. So, I said, you think we're being invaded by aliens? But he laughed. Oh no, Doctor. I was just telling you that so you could see how pointless my investigations were. All I had got were these crackpots. I realised I had to seek proper professional help. I don't know if this might be a tumour or if I'm going mad. I just know I need help. I sat back and smiled. Mr. Ellis, please don't worry. You've not got a tumour and you're not going mad. Although highly unusual, trauma-induced visions is medically recognised. It's to do with a slight dislocation of the optical nerve combined with a phenomenon whereby stored images from the brain resonate along to the occipital lobe. It can seem very real and frightening, but generally they go away. Mr. Ellis beamed. That's such a relief. I nodded and reached into my top drawer, bringing out a small plastic bottle. These things will do the business better than anything I could prescribe. Proper sleeping tablets. Knock you out for 9 hours solid. They'll give your brain the chance to reset and heal. Take 2 every night for 2 weeks. You'll be fine. He got up and shook my hand. Thank you, Dr. Gilmer. You've really set my mind at rest. After he'd gone, I looked at myself in the mirror. Then I carefully removed my human mask. These are hot and uncomfortable, but thankfully more effective against any breakdown in the mass hypnosis treatment like happened with Mr. Ellis. I was sorry for him. He was a nice little man, but unfortunately the sleep he'd get from those pills would be a lot longer than 9 hours. Still, it's academic. With the invasion just 6 months off, it would have made little difference in the long run.
Oh, thank you so much. And now we have 2 little snippets from our other short story shortlistees. Terry Baldock is next.
Thank you. I don't have any lizards at all in this story. The vision theme was, as you know, and inspiration comes from anywhere. This inspiration for this story came from one of John Lamont's inspirational motivational courses. He showed a video by Brother David called Gratitude, and in that video there are 2 guys. It's only about 3 seconds. It's 2 guys walking along, obviously jazz men somewhere in the southern states of America. One carrying a trumpet, the other a saxophone. Had arms around each other, really happy people. Satchmo and the trombone man. And so the title of my story is Satch and the Bowman. In the story, they were performers in Covent Garden, pretended to be visually impaired, and had a homeless man who danced with them. This is the extract. The 2 musicians waved at the audience, and that was when my doubts began to creep in. Were they really what they seemed, or were they a couple of con artists using a fake impairment to rake in more money? I became their biggest fan. Along with the out-of-time dancer, I followed them, and I concluded that they weren't visually impaired at all. Neither of them. It was just a way to make money. They had a regular route. Either one led, but the one at the rear always had his hand on his partner's shoulder. The one at the back always played the trumpet. Didn't need to be good with the instrument, just single notes. Surely if they could both lead the other, then they must be able to see. I had the photographic evidence. I decided to meet with the two jazzmen, ask them about their background. Then things went wrong. Thank you.
Goodness, what a cliffhanger there. So our final reading for today is Penny Blackburn's extract.
Thank you. My story centres around a place in the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, which is, you sit inside it and you can see a square of sky through it. My story tells about a relationship, and it's told from the point of view of the wife. And I'd like to read a little bit from the start and from the end. The first time I brought Gabe, he said he'd seen a bird of prey, and I knew he was lying. I challenged him. What kind? A red kite, really high up. You don't get red kites here, the habitat's not right. He insisted. He kept trying to persuade me, impress me. But I knew my birds better than he did, and I wouldn't let him get away with it. At the bar that night, out of nowhere, he asked, "What's the common one, the one that hovers?" A kestrel. That's the one I saw. I guessed he was still lying, trying to save face, but he leaned over and kissed me, so I decided to shut up. His kiss tasted of curling wood smoke and diving peregrines. It made me smile. When I look at the world from the hilltop and the whole sky unrolls around me, right to the edge of the county, I am terrified. Without Gabe, I simply cannot bear to look. But when I focus on that small section of sky captured in the lines of the square, I feel like there might be something ahead, something unexpected like a plane or a bird that will break the blankness. Who knows? Maybe one day I will see the red kite. And so I keep watching. I keep hoping. Thank you.
Oh, we've gone off. That got a little exciting. Yes, hurrah! So thank you so much to all of our readers and to our sponsors. Can we have another round of applause for everybody, please? The next writing magazine competition, I don't think it's on their website yet, but they're running another one, and all of our sponsors have agreed to another free place. So do have a look, and because you're here, you get to know in advance that the theme is